You might go home and sleep with somebody, you might go home and get a job. Like, I know. You guys should start a podcast.
I think every journalist is annoyed they weren't accidentally copied on that signal. It was very irritating to me. For a long time, this is terrible. I'm sorry to anyone this actually happened to. But for a long time, you could make a career on getting kidnapped as a journalist.
Yeah.
And like, it's horrible. I would not want to get kidnapped. I'm sure it's terrifying and awful. I don't want to belittle the experience. But a little piece of me was like, damn.
You know what? When I started it, I had very little reputation or online presence, so I had very little to lose, and I was writing the same way that I do today. It's like my favorite job I've ever had.
Who's the most powerful, controversial person that you've interacted with at Casa?
I don't stay after the sun goes down.
G'day, I'm Lachlan Cartwright.
I'm Ravi Samaya.
We are Breaker, and we're coming to you this week from Canto in the West Village. Thank you to Jamal, the owner. We have a very special guest here at Breaker this week. Emily Sundberg is here from Feed Me, her must-read Substack newsletter about all things business, consumption, culture in New York. Emily, thank you for joining us.
It's an honor. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, I remember when Ben Smith wrote a piece about us in Semaphore, and one of the first pieces to be picked up from that was your newsletter. We felt absolutely honored when you had mentioned that we were the, how did you phrase this again? Like the chat GPT of Bret Easton Ellis.
Yes, the way, it wasn't the business, it wasn't that. It was the way that you were describing it was that,
Yeah, there was a really, what Ben had done is really transcribed a quote that I had garbled. So it really did sound like ChatGPT. So it was an extremely accurate thing. And almost for our website font, I almost chose Cillian Rail, which is the font that he uses on his business cards in American Psycho, because that movie's great.
It all worked out.
Yeah, exactly. You intuited a lot.
Yeah.
We've had another Butte Bonza week here at Breaker.
Okay.
We had a piece last night. We are Tuesdays and Thursdays now, Emily. We had a piece last night in the newsletter about scandal PR. So we did a dive into the world of what we're calling scandal PR, which are sort of PR operatives who have been born out of the Blake Lively Justin Baldoni story. And Ravi, you focused in on one, Nick Shapiro. Tell us about Nick.
Do they want to pause for a second?
Well, actually, this is all kind of part of the show. So is this, you want to talk about what's
Yeah, well, we tend to keep rolling through all noise, just because it's like part of the
We
whole
actually
show.
called it.
it's like a fire.
We actually called in a favor from the FDNY. They were just going to,
we like drama.
Just to,
Sorry, it's distracting. I see fire trucks, I get really scared.
A bit of sort of real life downtown New York.
Yeah, this is where it's all happening.
In a minute, a guy's going to rappel down that building. It's a whole scene. It's like Universal
We set it up.
Studios.
Okay, got it.
Here.
Sorry, I have my attention.
We pretend it's a small production. It's actually huge.
We wait until official evacuation orders before we have.
They were shouting. I don't know.
Scandal PR.
Okay, Scandal PR, Justin, Blake.
I mean, so one of the things that I read in covering this story was that PR people now outnumber journalists 6-1. Like, probably overlaps a little bit into your world, Emily. It definitely overlaps a bit into ours. And essentially, like any story you do, you hit some gatekeeper. And the one we were interested in yesterday was this guy, Nick Shapiro.
Yeah, you kind of saw this thread a few weeks ago. We reported about the Blake and Baldoni lawsuit, and we went into sort of detail about sort of the conspiracy theories and what's happening with the New York Times lawsuit. And you said to me at the time, there's this CIA bloke involved, and I was like, what? Who's the CIA bloke? And you did some digging.
Yeah, so effectively this guy has become kind of cast as, I described him as the Kaiser Soze of the internet. Like, he has some secret tools to manipulate public opinion. Like, he can get your posts shut down on Instagram and YouTube. He can manipulate your Wikipedia.
That's a handy card to have. I can shut down your Insta.
Yeah, exactly. But in my experience, because I try and influence public opinion so that people watch this show and read our newsletter, it's not easy, And so it struck me as probably a myth, and that's almost exactly what we discovered. Like, he can't really do those things. But I do think that we're in this really weird moment where all that stuff is really plausible. I don't know, you've been covered a lot recently. You're in the New York Times, all that kind of stuff. Like, when you're out there in the public debate, when people are talking about you, like, it's a weird experience. Has all these strange currents.
I think I was really intentional when I started Feed Me to sort of decide how I wanted to present my life to the world, though. So by the time that the Times story came out, I really avoided anything that would have potentially gone wrong with that sort of thing. I also think, like you're saying, that this is a really rare character to find this CIA type of guy to like shut down Instagram accounts or clean up your public presentation online. There's like a lot of college seniors, I'm sure, who could like help you out.
Do you know someone?
Yeah, I feel like most young men who know how to use a computer can like help you with that.
And I think
kind of stuff.
that is kind of why we kind of went into the scandal PR world, because the way these people present themselves is they, have some kind of dark arts. They have some kind of like special abilities. And to your point,
they don't.
They don't.
Yeah,
anyone with a computer who is semi-literate with the internet could probably dick around with your wiki.
I also think.
Sorry, I didn't mean to say dick around with your wiki.
No, it's so true. It's so true. And I think younger people are more privy to that than people who have been online for like 10, 20 years now.
Is that something you're conscious of about your online persona, because now you're so sort of in the public domain?
Well, I study and write about people with online personas. Like that is a big part of what I write about, like people's online like breadcrumbs and like things that they might have posted by accident or things that they posted on purpose that they didn't realize certain other things were in the background, whether it's displays of wealth or geotagging a restaurant or slipping in something in an Instagram caption that hasn't been announced yet. So of course, like when it comes to my own brand, I'm hyper sensitive to all of those things, whether it's like a party that I show up to or being associated with a certain host, or even just like do you know the show Subway Talks? Subway Takes, that Kareem hosts. Like, my take on that was that I'm never going to show anybody the inside of my house. Like, that is such an easy way to get clicks online, is like, let me do a house tour with you. But like, that's
an easy way to get burgled as well. Probably.
Yeah, it's a really great
You want a
way
home invasion, invite a camera crew around.
Yeah. But it's such a natural thing for people to do. Like, whether you get a new piece of art or a new rug or you're doing an interview, like the Times wanted to come into my house and I said no.
Probably to take a snapper with all these glamour shots. They love doing this, the moody kind of
right. And like there's just certain things that once you turn on those levers, you can't turn them back off. So I'm not saying I'll never show my house, but right now I'm not doing that.
No, and I think that people grow up now understanding they have a public and a private persona, and that's different in the moment that I grew up. I had the privilege of having a private persona for a long time, and thank God that none of the stuff from my youth is like on the internet.
I've got it somewhere. I keep a folder. There's a file
it's good
there
to have
ready.
like a safe folder of it.
He jokes,
so
but he actually has
it.
files on stuff.
That's good.
I'm a journo. You've got it. The scandal PR sort of world, was born out of a lot of different people over the years. I mean, it was, you've got crisis comms people who, have been around the city for many, many years. Stephen Rubenstein, Ken Sunshine, Risa Haller. And it's funny she's mentioned Risa, because she's really kind of been at the epicenter of a lot of the scandal PR stories in the last few years. She's repped Elizabeth Holmes, Jeff Shell, Ray Dalio, Bobby Kotick, Hassan Minaj, Columbia University, Mara Battaglia, and the voice of Elmo, which is my favorite one.
You wish she'd throw a party
she's
with
created
all
a
those
business
people.
out of it, and good for her. She's created a business out of it. She's a hustler, but the scandal PR world, I think, is getting bigger, and particularly in the Hollywood realm. And this Blake and Baldoni lawsuit is indicative of that.
Yeah, and look, I think that in the piece we mentioned that I think scandal used to be a thing that happened occasionally. If you're a company, you can expect to get embroiled in a scandal, like not regularly. Now in the online world, it's pretty constant. Like, these people are on retainer now. You know, you kind of need to have a PR person who can deal with a fast-breaking crisis nearby, or who can claim to deal with a fast-moving crisis nearby at all times. And I think what we've noticed in doing all of our stories recently, especially in the kind of media landscape, is what people are desperate for is control of the narrative. Mm-hmm. They want to control the narrative. That's what they want. And it's the hardest, most impossible thing to do. And it links into another story which we were working on, which the Wall Street Journal did a profile of our friend Oliver Darcy, who runs the newsletter Status. Hi, Oliver. And Rupert Murdoch called up and he was extremely upset. This young man has said negative things about Fox. Why are we giving him a profile?
And negative things about the Wall Street Journal. So he was livid, as we reported last week, in a conversation with Emma Tucker. Subsequent to that item, we broke another scooplet off the back of that last night, which was Emma Tucker had ordered the desurfacing of this story. Now, when I started...
Which story?
Of the Oliver Darcy profile that the Wall Street...
From weeks ago.
The Wall Street Journal did this profile of Oliver with moody photography, so that piece runs, and Emma Tucker orders her editors to surface it. I mean, the exact, from correspondence we obtained, internal correspondence we obtained, an editor says, Emma wants this story completely desurfaced. Now, I had no idea what desurfacing was.
Does that mean like removed from homepage, removed from promotion?
There you go, you get it right away.
You know you're desurfacing.
Emma would love you.
Yeah. And in the back and forth that went on with some editors, the comment was, she thinks the story should never, her stance is she thinks the story should never have been done. So what they did is they took the story, to your point, off this website, out of the app, and there was no more socializing, which, just to clarify, Emma Tucker's not ordering her editors not to socialize together. She's just saying take it off of any, so don't continue to present it on social media.
Fascinating.
And I think that it just illustrates that everyone wants a control of the narrative. It's what you were talking about when it comes to your brand. It's what we want. We want to be seen a certain way.
It's just so funny because I feel like most of the traffic from that piece probably was not coming from the Wall Street Journal's homepage. Like, it was probably coming from everybody else.
The funny thing was, it was actually the second most trafficked story that day on the website, I believe. And so it was doing great traffic. Even one of the editors mentions in this back and forth that we were privy to, wow, it's ironic, the story's doing great traffic and we're having to desurface it. But if you know of any other desurfaced items that are going on, breaker at breakermedia.com, because we're keen to know of any other ones that are going on. We also had a scooplet that I think you'll appreciate about Andrew Tate, who last week was staying at Casa Cipriani,
my club,
downtown, your club.
Did you see him there?
He was sighted in the bar there.
I don't stay there after sundown. I leave.
He was sighted in the bar then, and then he actually posted from a fourth floor room a video to his ex, which I believe is against the Casa Cipriani rulebook. So I'm not sure if Andrew Tate's going to be invited back anytime soon.
I'm sure he'll be fine. I mean,
he got out of Romania and he managed to get out.
Friends in high places.
My Times photos were taken there.
So they were cool with photography down there.
Well, I think it might be a slightly different thing. Your Times profile with its nice photos, and Andrew Tate, who I would venture to suggest is maybe a little more of a controversial character.
What is he being accused of?
Human trafficking, I believe.
Okay, all right. So he denies all charges. He denies all charges.
A lot of people who go to Casa Cipriani are accused of a lot of things. I'm sure he'll be fine.
Well, we were worried. We were interested in the kind of reaction from club members, because I felt like they might freak out just because he is maybe a bit close to the bone for some of the members, you know? They maybe move in that world. They watch that kind of stuff.
But you guys go there on like their backgammon nights. There's so many. Well, it's my club, so.
Oh, you're going to go
there.
But there's so many like powerful, controversial people there, you know?
Who's the most powerful, controversial person that you've interacted with at Casa?
I don't stay after the sun goes down.
That's when we've got to go. We have to go after when the sun goes down.
By the way, I love that rule. It's like sort of ancient wisdom applied to Casa Cipriani.
Yeah.
When the sun has fallen.
There's just another scene there at night. I love to go there. I love to use their beautiful gym. I love to work there. I love to take my meetings there. It's like my perfect hub in Manhattan, but yeah.
And look, we're super into private clubs. We're still covering them. It's weird and interesting to me that they're back as a thing.
Yeah.
Because I feel like Soho House was such a huge thing for such a long time.
So there are so many of these bloody clubs now.
Yeah.
What's your take on the rankings and the hierarchy and who's going to who and what's the hot spot and what's not?
So I think the newest, like down to the opening party date, I think the opening party for Maxime's was last night, and that was the one that you guys reported had that really expensive supposed membership fee, right? Which I think is actually quite a bit lower, but maybe that's like the founding membership fee. But I'm curious about what that's going to be like. I got a tour of the 22's membership club last weekend, and that they have like 4 or 5 rooms for their clubs, and then they also have these massive outdoor patios, which I think will be really fun this summer. And that one sort of skews, they have the big restaurant that's open to the public, so that sort of skews like it's like a little bit more accessible. Like I describe the room as like really cool employed people. Like it seems like people who are like made their own money, you know? I think San Vicente Bungalows, I need to see it with my own eyes because I've heard a lot of different...
It's beautiful.
Everyone says it's beautiful, and then I've heard like some people saying it like kind of goes into West Elm territory. So I need to see it and like feel the marble, you know.
Check if there's a West Elm.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of like beat it up a little bit. And I think that, you know, they have that dance club in the basement, which I think will be super appealing to people. Chez Margot seems to be sort of wearing the crown right now in terms of the newest one that's working. I have so many friends from so many backgrounds that are members there. I mean, I mentioned earlier, like, from the Clintons to Eric Adams to Tina Fey to, like, my friends who are just heiresses, essentially. Like, that's a good mix. And then, like, operators at media companies. Like, that's a fun, interesting room to be in.
It's about the mix, though, right? Isn't it, for a lot of these places?
No, I don't think they want to say that. Like, I think they say that, but they don't mean that.
So what do they mean? What do you think they
I think they just want people who spend a lot of money. Yeah.
Right.
Well, Soho House made that mistake, though. You know, they started just throwing the doors open and getting anyone through the door.
It became almost the Dunkin' Donuts of private members clubs.
Yeah, and I feel like that's kind of why I stopped going, because it was like... You know, I feel like the looking over the shoulder gets more intense when they throw the doors open.
I think the other thing with Soho House,
stays,
is they were open all day, and then in the wake of COVID, it just becomes like a WeWork.
Yeah, that's
right?
it.
There's like the Allbirds and laptop situation going on, and it's less of a club and more of an office. So, I mean, something noteworthy about a lot of these new places that we're mentioning is they're only open at night, which sort of takes away like the potential of it just turning into like a place where you have a ton of backpacks all over the place and people are just...
Yeah, that's it. It's very tricky though, because basically everywhere has a no laptop policy now for exactly that sort of anti-COVID reason. And, you know, it makes it hard to be a guy out.
If you go to Zero Bond during the day, it's totally empty. It's a ghost town. I was there not too long ago, and 6 p.m. there wasn't, you know, anyone really there.
Yeah.
So I think to your point, these places are now going to be, you know, downtown evening destinations rather than like we're open from, you know, early doors to late night, and it becomes just a setup where people are just tapping away on the computers and no one's having any fun.
And then the other side of the coin is that there's these new offices that are sort of taking cues from the members clubs, right? So there's like WSA downtown, but then there's this...
And there's a Brooklyn offshoot of
SAA, yes. But that's not office spaces. That's like truly a members club. And then there's this other office co-working space called the Malin, which is like a really beautiful version of WeWork. Yeah, I think there's like 4 or 5 of them, and I know some pretty impressive like funds that have offices there, and then freelancers and writers like myself who work there. So I think that's also interesting that they're creating, like, instead of, you know, the meta office looking WeWorks, they now have these like beautiful furnished co-working spaces.
No, it's gorgeous. It's like that building that they're in on Charles Street was always my, like, I don't know if you have this, but like my fantasy, if I strike it super rich, I'm going to buy that building.
Yeah. I mean, they also invest in like really gorgeous real estate. Yeah, but they have like the burled wood and the velvet curtains and the whole thing. So I think people just want to be not necessarily like you don't need to have money to necessarily go to some of these places, but being around, you're able to like socialize with people who are maybe successful or rich, and you get the benefits of it being near them or something. I don't know.
Well, you feel like you're a part of something. You know, you feel like you're in the city and you're doing it, and like Tina Fey is over there, and Eric Adams is handling a brown envelope allegedly over there. Yeah. And, you know, you feel like you're part of something.
Right. Yeah.
A couple of people who aren't socializing at these clubs are George Stephanopoulos and Robin Roberts. We had an item in the newsletter last week about some going-ons at CBS and at ABC. And in that piece, we had a little bit of reporting just tucked in there about this feud that's been ongoing between George and Robin that's been bubbling up for years and years, and the fact that George, on set of GMA, plays chess on his phone. And as they do brilliantly, the Daily Mail took this piece, basically a business report that we had done about CBS and ABC, and just took that bit of reporting out and blew it up into this whole piece about Robin Roberts and George Stephanopoulos. But we've talked a bit about human pettiness on this
Yeah,
pod.
I love pettiness. I absolutely adore pettiness.
Engaging in it or talking about it?
Engaging
Or
in
being
it.
petty.
Engaging in it, then I have to feel guilty about it afterwards. Although, of course, I do because I'm human and sensitive. But other people's pettiness
Yes.
is just wonderful and fascinating and gorgeous, and I think we dismiss it or deride it at our peril. We should celebrate human pettiness. And the notion of George Stephanopoulos sat there like just declining to engage with his co-host. The funny thing is, for the piece we tried to find a picture of the two of them together and there were just none. Like the most recent was 2016. It was just like Frost City, according to Getty Images. Maybe they have very warm
Apparently,
family albums.
according to a couple of people I've spoken to, he really got into the chess thing after the Queen's Gambit. So that's become a thing for him. So if he's not on camera and she's, teeing up an interview or whatever, he's just there, working away at his chess game.
I guess it's better than Instagram.
I think is absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Emily, you've really nailed the newsletter game, speaking of games.
Thank you.
And
Nice segue.
what do you put that success down to?
The success of my newsletter, I think I work really hard. It's like my favorite job I've ever had. You know what? When I started it, I had very little reputation or online presence, so I had very little to lose, and I was writing the same way that I do today. So it was like I had the same sources and the same sort of takes on things. I actually found my first letter from 2022 the other day, and
What was that? What was the subject?
It was just, I was sitting at my desk. I worked at Meta at the time, and I just said, I'm going to start a paywalled newsletter where I put really hard takes and business gossip. If you're interested in that, whatever. And I think I made $4,000 on that first letter.
Wow.
Because I have a really wide network. I just don't have a big I just didn't have an online presence at that time, but people still valued my opinions, and I had a strong resume. So I was really writing to nobody at the beginning, and it worked really well. And at the time, it wasn't like, I saw on Bloomberg this morning, they're hiring a CPG reporter, and clearly a big part of that is probably going to be about acquisitions like we just saw with Poppy, but I'm sure they're also interested in drama between the co-founders of Sweetgreen. And I don't know if that sort of role, it definitely didn't exist when I started my letter, but those were the types of things that I was writing about. So I think a big part of it was that I had nothing to lose. And I think another part of it was that it was filling a gap that didn't really exist. Those conversations weren't happening. Puck wasn't even really taking off by then. You guys didn't exist. Semaphore didn't really exist. You have mics. I don't.
We got 3. I'm really impressed.
Yeah, you got 3. I'm sure you have a spare one. So I think part of it was just gut instinct, and you can call that pattern matching. You can call that bridging a gap in the industry, but a lot of it was just gut.
I also feel speaking of gut, your audience, and that is so important.
Yeah.
For creating a product like this, it is knowing that audience. And I'm a bit of a geek. I look through in our Beehive system and see who's opening it, who's sharing it, and getting a feel for your audience. And I think that is incredibly important to know your audience, and you have voice as well. My audience and my platform, I've been on Substack for over 5 years now. I know a lot of people are just sort of discovering it today or last year. Hamish.
Hi, Hamish. And I've learned that product so well. I'm friendly with, the co-founders now. I'm friendly with the team there. I know how to work out my own bugs. And then I also have had roles where I've been a writer or a marketer or a social media manager or an audience manager or a graphic designer, and I can do all those things every day.
As we're finding out, there's a lot to do when you're starting out
what do you think that a
company?
newsletter can do that someone like Bloomberg can't do? Why? I mean, it seems to me
because there's a lot of people leaving these institutions.
Bloomberg could definitely do what I do. They just have a lot more processes in place that it would be sort of crazy for them to do it. I mean, Joe Weisenthal can tweet out his takes every day, and maybe he will eventually have a newsletter where he's putting those in a letter and sending them himself. But there are checks and balances. There are legal teams and editors, and so I think a big thing is speed. Just being able to I write everything in the morning, and I'm using my best judgment, and I do have you know, if I have like legal people I need to check in with, I'll do that. But it's like within a series of texts. It's not like a calendar meeting for noon today and then I have to wait until after that and then have it teed up in the CMS system. Like, it's speed.
You can move quickly.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. I think that something that I have that you guys don't have on Beehive is like the chat feature, so I can talk with my readers daily, like thousands and thousands of people. While I'm recording this right now, they're still talking. Like, I know that when you're buying a subscription to Feed Me, you're not just getting that daily newsletter, you're also getting access to a super active comment section of really smart, interesting people, and a chat, and then like invites to parties where you might go home and sleep with somebody, you might go home and get a job. Like, I know.
Both.
Yeah. You guys should start a podcast.
We spent too much time together.
Yeah, exactly. But like, and then it's also I
guess it's like a private members club to some extent. I mean, that's how we see it. You're building
like
a community.
A private members club, but it's also just like a really fucking cool brand. Like, I get photos of people online at TSA taking pictures of people with like the Feed Me sweatshirts on, you know? Or like they see the keychains at a bar, or it's like Tuesday morning and they're online for coffee and like the email hits and there's like 2 people in the coffee place with Feed Me open on their phones. Like, so
it must be a lovely feeling for you.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's great. It makes me super happy.
Speaking of the chat thing, it just reminded me, a story that's dominating the headlines this week is The Atlantic, whose editor, Jeffrey Goldberg, was added to a group chat, quite a sensitive group chat, about, you know, plans to on a terror strike in Yemen. On some Houthis. So that is a case where group chats can go a little bit pear-shaped.
I have no idea how
Are you planning any strikes in Yemen on your
I'm not.
Feed Me chat?
No,
okay,
but it does get a little crazy sometimes when there's so many readers in it, so I have to like moderate it sometimes.
And you must be in a lot of group chats as well. Have you had
I'm
situations
in a lot of group chats.
They've gone pear-shaped where someone's been added?
I really believe, and this goes back to kind of what we were saying at the beginning of this recording, that like we live in a world where everything is screenshotted, and I act that way. I think that a lot of people in the group chats that I'm in probably don't, but
there's probably another group chat afterwards with people just sending the screenshots of the other group chat.
Always.
Right.
Always.
Right.
And like, I act that way because I know that is how my job works, and like, I don't ever want to be... I've gotten like wrong screenshots of conversations before from people. I've gotten wrong fundraising decks. Like, it happens. So I'm just super careful about those things.
You've probably written about them when you've gotten...
I absolutely have. Yeah.
Yeah, I think every journalist is annoyed they weren't accidentally copied on that signal. It was very irritating to me. For a long time, this is terrible. I'm sorry to anyone this actually happened to. But for a long time, you could make a career on getting kidnapped as a journalist.
Yeah.
And like, it's horrible. I would not want to get kidnapped. I'm sure it's terrifying and awful. I don't want to belittle the experience. But a little piece of me was like, damn. He was off for a week. He got a great story out of it.
He's got a book deal.
You got the book deal like
There's
that.
a film made out of him.
Yeah.
You know, he's going to parties and getting laid in a new job at the same time.
Exactly. I'm
He's
sure
on
you
Emily's
guys
Feed
could
Me
figure
chat.
it out. Like, go to there's somewhere to go and get.
What's your advice, Emily? You know, what's your advice to someone thinking, I'm going to leave a legacy, you know, a media company, I'm going to start my own newsletter, or someone who's, you know, just getting their start and thinking, actually, I'm not going to go the legacy route. You know, I'm going to start my own thing on Substack or Beehive or wherever.
I can't imagine starting Feed Me today. I think that Why? Because I started it at a time when nobody knew what Substack was. The headlines weren't crowded with it. There wasn't like this. It's so emotional now when people talk about it. It's like they're so excited about it, or they're like, not another Substack, or they're like, are we bullish on Substack? And there's like whispers around the next fundraise and like video and audio and all these things. And it was so simple for me, and it was such a straight line. And I don't think it's like that now. I can't imagine finding the same success, the same growth. I hope that people do. I hope that people like find their niche. I think when you go in, you have to have a really clear idea of what you're doing. From day one, I said, this is daily, this is paywalled. I don't think a lot of people have that same sort of vision. I would say if you're going to quit your job and start a Substack, you should have a sufficient amount of savings.
Good idea.
I like worked on the side.
I wish we had a check with you before doing this.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you guys are set up. You live in the West Village, but like I think that I worked on the side when I started it, and that also kept me like somewhat in a world. I wasn't like sitting alone in my apartment writing every day. I was consulting on the side. Like my last consulting project was with Shopify, but I worked with like consumer brands before that. I started it while I was at Meta, so I was surrounded by people and having conversations with them. But if I was gonna start a newsletter today, I would probably do it with like a very clear vision. Like, am I tracking the path to like launching a product? Or is this like for a book deal? Or am I specifically like talking with different people about X topic every day? I think you have to be really focused now for people to actually give a shit, because there's also
the market's so crowded.
Yeah, there's subscription fatigue. I'm also lucky that I have like advertisers that support me. So I don't know how you would, like, if you're just going in with the hopes to make a living in your 20s or 30s on like potential subscriptions from people who are already subscribing to 150, 20 things. Like, I'm very like money minded. If this stopped working, I wouldn't mind having to go like work in a restaurant or go work in social media consulting again. Like, I just think a lot about financials, and right now this is what financially makes a lot of sense for me.
Do you think that's like a generational thing? Do you think that like your peers are also equally focused on finances, or is that just
no?
Thing?
No. Do you think that people my age are?
I don't know. To be honest, I don't know why I asked that question. So I'm going to scratch it from the record.
Yeah, I don't think that at all. No, I think they all want more money because the world is like very expensive, and like we're living in a time where people buy a lot.
And we live in a bloody expensive city.
We live in a very expensive city. Yeah. Yeah.
Price of eggs. We could get into it. Let's not do it.
I know, it's crazy. Price of members clubs. Like, where are you going to hang out if all your friends are at the club?
That's it. You're just going to hang out in the street for free.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for hanging out with us.
This was so fun.
This has been an absolute pleasure to have you on. I remember when you first wrote about us, you said, why would I want an Aussie to text me media gossip? And I've been enjoying, texting
You've been great.
you.
You've broken things that I wish I broke. You guys are definitely keeping up with the name.
Well, thank you very much. Ravi, you can subscribe to Breaker at breakermedia.com. Breakermedia.com.
I do too.
Thank you. And we will be back next week. If you want your bar, restaurant, coffee shop, laundromat featured on the Breaker pod, please get in touch. Breaker at breakermedia.com. Thank you again to Emily. Subscribe to Feed Me on Substack. Ravi, we'll be back next week. And with this pod, you can
subscribe, you can like, and you can also listen to it a little bit after our subscribers on Apple and Spotify and a whole bunch of other places that you can get podcasts.
We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.